everybody, it's Daryn Wood, and welcome back to another episode of The Gift of Gab. And I'm joined here by my wonderful, beautiful best friend, Haugen. Say hello.
Hey, everyone.
And today we're going to be talking about encounter types. So, combat, puzzles, different ways you clash in the D&D game, and what are some of your favorite ways that your DM has spiced up encounters for you. So, this is always a good way to get into some good stories, but let's just start it out with the subject itself. Allie, on the record, which do you like better, combat or puzzles? You can only pick one, and whichever one you choose, it'll be the one that you said for the rest of your life. You can never change it or take it back. I know,
forever?
It's crazy. I don't make up the rules, but that...
My goodness. Okay, if I had to pick one forever, it's the only play style, I guess I would pick combat.
Boo! No, I'm just kidding.
I know, I like it better. Puzzles make me panic a little bit. You know, if I have to solve a thing, especially if a DM puts time constraints on it, I freak out. My brain falls out of my head. And I am way more stressed than necessary. It's just a game. I'm just there to have fun and maybe hit some stuff.
I think the obvious real answer, everybody, is that we all like combat, and we like a little bit of each, and we like a little bit of that depending on the game you're in. I think I actually don't really typically like combat. TBH, if I'm being totally honest, combat bores me after a while. And you've probably noticed with my ADHD fidgeting, the longer that we sit in a combat encounter, the longer I start. The things I'm doing get more and more ridiculous as time goes on. But at the same time, without combat in a session, I also get bored. So the moral of the story is I'm never happy. I'm sorry for my team. I'm just kidding.
Well, especially I think party size is really dependent on that as well.
That's true.
If you're at a table of 7 people, then a combat takes a very long time while you're waiting for everybody. And you're trying to pay attention to everybody and give them their time and space and be aware of what's the present battlefield is like by the time that it's your turn.
Yeah.
But it's a lot. It's a lot, especially if you have a shorter attention span.
Yeah. I also think it depends on the people you play with too. Like our home game, for instance, is home game or our longest running home game that we've been playing for the last... We figured it out in one of the other episodes. Is it 4 years? Is it 5 years? We don't know, actually.
Yeah.
We have no idea. It is definitely primarily combat focused, but I think that's just what works better in that group. Everyone has more fun that way. So by nature that everyone has more fun playing combat in that group, combat is more fun. So we mostly do all combat. But in another group where I was doing all combat like that, I would get bored.
Yeah. I think in our group, the story progression moves along a little bit faster because the combat is so efficiently tied into the narrative.
True,
and so as we beat this boss here, it also advances the story. And so then we get the journey and the movement and the location change all with and post combat.
Yeah.
Versus I think sometimes if there isn't a good story progression, then combat can feel pretty redundant.
Like if you just do combat kind of in a vacuum, sometimes it's like we just did a combat and it took so long. Now we're doing another one. Like what for? Because this person pissed this person off. Like this is so annoying. But I don't know if we've mentioned this before in another episode, but I'm just going to mention it again just in case. But I don't know if you guys know, but our DM is her brother Bradley. Bradley mentioned.
Bradley, who's that?
He based our home game off of Halo 3.
Diablo.
Or Diablo 3.
3.
Yes.
Yeah, Diablo 3.
So our home game is Diablo 3. And none of us have ever played that Diablo. And so, Scout's honor, we don't go back and we look it up. But
spoilers.
No spoilers. But like a video game, a lot of the encounters are tied to a story progression moment. So even when we're getting like lost in the sauce of the world or doing our own thing, there are always these encounter combat-based progression moments that he can always come back to kind of get us back on track. Genius, by the way. If you're ever a DM and you're like, I don't know what to do for my friends for their campaign, I just want to throw something, just copy a video game. It's so fun.
Yeah.
It's
great
so
move.
Fun. It's
especially one that you know well enough.
And then as a treat, whenever we finish a story progression moment, he'll show us the cutscene from the video game and we're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So it's really cool.
It's like our D&D campaign becoming a movie, which I think is like everybody's dream. Seeing their own campaign come to life.
But I definitely like a mixture of combat and puzzles because I think the combat slog, for some reason, my brain just doesn't engage with it. And puzzles, maybe it's because, I don't know, I really like Survivor, so maybe there's something in there that just like wants to. I feel like a good little boy who's gonna get a treat if I somehow solve the thing that is placed in front of me.
Yeah. Remember that one time that our DM did not give us a puzzle, but we were so sure that the scenario in front of us had to be a puzzle to solve. So we were trying to like place, I think it was like rubies. There was a statue and we're like, oh my gosh, this is a trap with a puzzle we have to solve.
Okay, Bradley, calling you out, Bradley. You set that room up very puzzle-like. It was giving puzzle. It's like there was a red ruby that connected to this kind of thing happening and a blue stone that connected to like lightning happen, and then a green stone that made like acid come in the room, which feels booby-trappy puzzle.
Yes.
Like it felt like there was a puzzle to solve. We had to get this coveted soul from this layer, and removing the soul would set off all these alarms and shit. So we thought we had to ding, 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 to like Mission Impossible, like drop in and like do all these things to like be able to extract this soul.
In reality, we could just pick it up.
We could have just picked it up the entire time, and messing with all those rubies was like intentionally getting us in trouble.
Yep.
And we messed with it for an hour.
For a while. Yeah.
Like a real life hour, I think.
Way more work than necessary.
Yeah.
That's like
great poker face though, Bradley. He really was just like
let us.
He like really, and we're like, it's gotta be something. So like maybe if you put the blue ruby down while I put the red ruby down, and then these two things focus, that will release the soul in the other room. And then like eventually when we did find out, we could just walk up and get it. Bradley's just like
Speaking of Bradley, he is actually incredible at puzzles. I was playing a campaign, and my other DM, Chris, set up a puzzle type encounter, and it was timed, and he put on this suspenseful music, which made it horrible. So timing and really intense, like suspense music that just made it feel daunting, and my anxiety was at an all-time high. Very escape room vibes, like you need to find the correct word, and there was like lava rising, and if you didn't get it in time, like we were gonna just die from lava. And Bradley really picked up the mantle here. I didn't do anything. I just sat there and watched him solve.
You just got slowly catatonic. You're like,
it was too much pressure.
This is not what I was. I didn't.
Can we at least turn off the music? No.
Actually, because you asked me that, the lava just got 2 inches higher. And you're like, honestly, exact opposite. That sounds like the time of my life. Hey, Chris, now we're calling you out to camera. Chris, I would love to play your escape room puzzle combat, because that sounds like an episode of Survivor that I could be a part of in real life.
Absolutely.
Wow. Wait, so what were some of the puzzles and stuff?
I think it was just the one puzzle. It was, I don't even remember. I blacked out. I was so stressed. There were like words, and the words were color coded, and the words, I believe, were like to a certain class. The words and the colors had to align. I don't know, but Bradley was able to decipher the puzzle relatively easily and quickly, and we were able to ask for hints as well to help. But if you asked for a hint, it did make the lava rise faster than the time limit was already the increment. So
this sounds incredible.
It was a brilliant puzzle, and incorporation of that mechanic into it. Total props. I'm not the person you want on your team to solve a puzzle.
Meanwhile, cut to me as you're telling me this. My face is like this.
Yeah, you're like, that sounds great.
Wow.
Absolutely.
That is my dream come true.
You don't want me on your Survivor team. I would not survive.
Makes notes to myself. Takes out my notebook of like doomsday prep.
Bring
like,
Bradley. Leave Allie.
Leave behind.
The weakest link.
But like, other than, I mean, I'm thinking of, just to make it not as binary, there's like way more encounter types than combat and puzzle. They're just the easiest to name. But I'm thinking of like, there have been ways, so let's go into spicing up encounter types, because one, I think that's a really great way that Chris spiced up a puzzle encounter type by giving it stakes, by giving it music, by giving it like, whoa, I just hit my microphone. Limit. Giving it a time limit, making it the suspense tangible in the room, but then also adding things that you could the hints thing, I think, is a great way to be like, okay, don't stress out. It's like an actual escape room. So I think that's a great way to spice up a puzzle encounter that other people might find be like, I don't want to solve a crossword puzzle. That's so boring. I don't care. It doesn't feel like anything. And he's like, I'll make you feel something, goddammit. I'll put a timer on.
Oh my gosh.
So I think that's a great way to spice up that encounter. But I've also had other kind of puzzles spiced up. I'm thinking of like one of our other DMs, Marvin, that we had. Shout out, Marvin. I felt like he spiced up encounters. How do I even name this? There's maybe not a name for it, but I'm thinking of your Eladrin character.
Oh, as far as like incorporating a backstory. So what Marvin did that I thought was like spicy for the campaign is I pitched him the idea of my character, and he was like, okay, great. I'm going to kind of help develop your backstory, but that's going to be a secret from you.
Yes, and explain what your character was a little bit.
So I was playing an Eladrin rogue, and as Eladrins change season, they have different abilities that align with their season. And so I thought it would be fun to have even my rogue art subclass type change with the Eladrin seasons. And so his idea was, okay, you're not going to know the reason why. Or he implemented little things like I had memory loss. And so I was discovering things about my own lore as we played, which tied into the mystery of the storyline that we were on.
With a storyline that we were in at that time was a little bit more uncovering political intrigue and like the city machinations that were going on as to why the things were happening the way that they were. And I thought it was just a really cool mechanic because Allie's Eladrin character, sometimes, you know, she would go to sleep and wake up and be different, whatever. And then sometimes it would be because of something that happened or something would trigger the Eladrin season change. And then things would change around that. Like at one point, I think we met someone who knew you in your other season. And so that was incorporated into this like challenge that we were doing and like information, because we were on this like espionage trying to like figure out information. And then it's like, if you were able to like change and use this part of your subclass, then you would get more information from that, or you would get entry into that thief thing based on your old subclass history that you had to uncover because you didn't know yourself. That was really cool. I thought that was a really great way to take a political intrigue, information gathering, and find a way to make the player have major buy-in. You, the person, I want to find out what the fuck my backstory is. I want to find out why this is happening the way it is, but you're also finding out the information you need for your little sneak campaign. I thought that was a super cool way to spice up that kind of puzzly espionage encounters.
To be like, one of you was involved in this, but you don't remember.
Exactly.
So now figure it out.
I've seen a bunch. I'm trying to do some recall. Devin always has great ways to spice up encounters, and they're usually always pretty creative in terms of, because he just loves to try new shit out, and it's not even, you know, sometimes D&D specific. He's just like, I want to try it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's a good way to play test it in a way. And so I remember one of the times we were playing, he used these encounter cards where he basically just wrote up a kind of like the barbarian wild magic surge table where shit just happens, where it's like, oh, you teleport 10 feet, or lightning shoots out from you, or you can switch spots with somebody, just a bunch of random things that kind of shift the battlefield, add a little extra something, whatever. He wrote a bunch of these on a blank piece of paper, shuffled them, everyone got 2, and then he was like, you can play them at any point in, I forget, sorry Devin, I'm totally butchering this, and I'm sure you've talked about this on your own channel as well, so check him out on Total Party Chiller, start playing games. But he basically implemented it in such a way that you could play it outside of your specific turn in order to aid another player. Like you could either play it as yourself and then use it to aid you, or play it for another player. And so we all had these little things in our back pocket that we were like, and they would be crazy too, because it would be like teleport like 20 feet up in the air, and you're
wow.
like, hopefully I might need that at some point. I don't know, but if not, then, and then of course we were like fighting this big dragon, and someone got like yanked really high up, and then we were able to play that card, and we were trying to, you know, also decide when it would be the most strategic. It was a really, really cool way to keep you engaged, because then you had this extra level of thing that in your back pocket. They were like, well, I don't know when I want to use
so fun.
it. Yeah, it was so much fun. And even if you had like one of the, it was so cool. It was a really, really cool way to spice
adding
up
an
combat.
extra mechanic or additional feature that, because I think that's spicy, is giving people something out of their normal repertoire that they can do rather than just like, I hide, I sneak attack.
Yeah.
Repeat.
Yeah, and then it gave you something kind of out of your class feature list that you could play with, which, you know, we all love. We all like to dip our toes into every little thing, but you're limited to the character you create. So it did feel fun to be able to just randomly do this stuff. And there's always a super easy way to implement that. Like, you're in a place where magic is surging and it's wild, so a bunch of random shit's happening. So like, you at any point can implement this random Uno card in the middle of the combat. Was very, very, very cool.
Yeah, I think I want to say that Chris has done something like that before. Is that, you know, you go into this magically dense area and he's like, all right, spellcasters, this is what's going on for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool to, you can get so creative with whatever to spice up the normal setting that you're going through. And I like that. I like a little spiciness.
Yeah. And I think another way, because, you know, spicing up the encounter doesn't always have to fall on the DM. It can also be a player participated thing, not to a disrespectful degree, guys, within reason. But we did have we had a sorcerer in our party once, and because the whole point of a sorcerer is they're supposed to be, the magic comes from them, it's inherent, it's blood, whatever, and so kind of thematically, usually with a sorcerer, it's like, oh, I'm coming into my powers. Maybe I don't know them very well. I don't have control over them. And then she specifically was kind of like, whatever, fuck it, I don't care. And like never took any time to like study or hone her magical powers, but they were very, very, very strong. And then so Devin let her build her spell list based on what was happening in each combat. So she'd be like, I think that one time, you know, I got really drunk and I wanted to like ice skate on the pool. And so I froze it. Do you think I could have this ice spell and use it again right now to blah, 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 blah. And then he's like, I will allow it. So it's like, if you could come up of a sufficient reason to be motivated in the moment to do it, where it's like, oh, I'm seeing him fall. Can I then, you know, cast, what's the one? Featherfall, because blobbity bloop blop. That's what it's triggering. Or I've done this in the past and it's in my spell list. You'd be like, yes. And so she was building her spell list as she came along as a sorcerer who had no idea what they're doing, had no interest in studying, and was just doing things purely off vibes. And it was a fun way. Because then it's like, once you're in your spell list, it was in your spell list forever. And so she was using these actual,
I like that.
It was
that
really,
is
really cool.
Spicy.
Yeah.
I think the spice is the best when everybody's involved and engaged. So I think that's a wonderful way.
Devin, again, just shout out for him in terms of player creativity. This is kind of, you know, going off into another topic, but it's worth warranting, and he talks about it a lot himself, I think. But he comes up with his own home rules for classes that are always super, super fun. I don't have all of them up now, I'm sorry right now, but I played a paladin, so I do know as a paladin, you know, the whole thing is like the oath of yes, and you believe everything so vehemently. And so he, in a desperate moment, would let you use your lay on hands somebody if you didn't have any lay on hands left, but it would take away from your max HP forever. So it's like cool stuff like that, where he always has these homebrew class rules that are just like a little extra edge for you. That like a lot of them are really, you're like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, because you're like, that's what you would do if you're a paladin.
Yeah.
But there's a cost, and so there's a bunch of really cool stuff like that.
That is some good heat
That's
to that
some
spice.
good spice. That's some num 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 good spice.
That's the spice I'm talking about.
That's the spice of life. That's Chili's. We're here and we're family. Is that Olive Garden?
I think that's Olive Garden.
What's the Chili's theme? Baby back ribs? Or is that Outback Steakhouse?
You know what? I think it's fine because we're saying these corporations and messing up their slogans, so we won't get in trouble.
Whatever. All right. Well, then I think that about wraps it up for this episode. Thank you for joining us for another blibbity bloop blah 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 gift of
Blah
gab.
blah blah blah.
Blah 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 blah. See you next time. Bye.